Hey, Jimbo, you ready for this deal?
Let her rip.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, friends and neighbors. Time once again for the Cowboys of the Osage podcast with your host, Jimbo Snively and Cody Garnett. Now let's sing a little bit about it. Cowboys of the Osage, riding once again. Always got some time for a friend. And here they are, the Cowboys of the Osage.
Howdy, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Cowboys of the Osage podcast, brought to you by the Ben Johnson Cowboy Museum and the Buck and Flamingo Turquoise Shop, both located in historic downtown Pawhuska, Oklahoma. Hey, it's old Cody over here, and as always, I have my main man with me, Mr. Rodeo Historian himself, songwriting son of a gun, too. Probably wrote a song on the way here this morning.
Songwriting fool, or fool songwriting, I don't know which one.
Jimbo Snively. Good morning, Jimbo. Good to see you. Who are we sitting here with today?
Hey, Cody, boy, it's another great day in the Osage, man. And Cody, we got Mr. Jay Adcock with us today, one of the guys, and he's our expert craftsman and helps us out whenever we have one of those master craftsmen on here.
Resident master craftsman.
Yeah, he's our resident master craftsman. And we've got a good one today. We've got James Coldren of JC's Cowhorn Buckles, world famous JC, and they're even going to be more famous after this podcast, I hope. And he makes some beautiful buckles out of cow horn, just unique. I mean, not everybody, you see those metal buckles all over the place, but you don't see these everywhere. And
he just takes an old cow horn and makes something beautiful out of it. It's the dangest thing I've ever seen.
Daggum thing. And also there's a little backstory to that. Here, 1991, I think it was, he had an accident in his shop that would have killed most people and probably about killed him. And he overcame that and had his hand cut off right at the wrist, and they reattached it. And he's still making those beautiful buckles with that bad hand. It's amazing, the whole story. And we're going to get into all that along with some other stuff. It'll be a good podcast, I think. Guys, welcome to the Cowboys of the Osage podcast.
Thank you. Yeah, thanks for having us.
Glad to have you.
For sure.
James, January 1991. Talk about that day.
Yeah, it was on my mom's birthday.
Is that right?
Yeah, it was a cold day, and I was working in the shop. The two guys that I worked with was feeding, but I was shearing some heavy cable to mount on a cattle sprayer to make it where we could load it and unload it. And there was an old 50-ton hydraulic press there in the shop, and I'd run presses before. I had 3 years of machine shop when I was in school, and so it wasn't like I was new to it. But there was a set of snow chains hanging up above the machine that go on a dual wheel pickup, so they're really heavy, heavier than a regular set of snow chains. But I was shearing that cable, and I don't know how much detail you want me to get into, but
all of what you want to tell.
The cable went to slip out, and when it did, I reached to grab it, and the vibration of that machine made them chains fall, and when they fell, they hung on the lever that activates it. And so when it's not under pressure, it jumps real fast, and so that's what it was like a sharp blade that I was shearing that cable with. It was real high tensile cable, and so when I'd make a cut, it would want to unravel, and when I'd make a cut, I'd wrap electric tape around it, and luckily I had my knife out, and I was using to cut that tape. But anyway, it jumped down and got my wrist right here,
Didn't you have a couple of coats on? Did you tell me that you had a heavy coat on that kind of?
Yeah, I had a Carhartt coat on and a pair of leather gloves, and it jumped down and caught me, and I tried to lift the chains up off that lever, but that was too heavy, and then once the machine gets under pressure, it slows down. It was air over hydraulic, and so it cut all the way through except for the skin right here, and so I was hung up in the machine and bleeding really bad, and luckily my knife was laying there and sharp, and I had to. It was either finish cutting it off or stand there and bleed to death, die. People, it's like, how'd you do that? And it's like, well, that wasn't the hard part.
No.
But after that, I was scared that I was going to collapse. I remember my knees buckling, and on the other side of the shop there was a telephone, and I tried to tie a tourniquet around it, and I remember twisting it up with a screwdriver, but it kept popping off, and I thought, well, I'm wasting time. So I called Sherry, and she was supposed to have worked that day, and something happened anyway. Our boy JD, he was just a baby then, but I told Sherry, I said, I'm gonna need to go to the hospital. I'm hurt, and I didn't tell her what happened. Mm-hmm. So I drove over to the house, which ain't very far, across headquarters, and she loaded me in a truck, and she drove back over to the shop, and I asked her what she was doing, and she said, well, I'm going to go get your hand. We got an argument over it. And I said, well, there ain't no sense getting that hand. There ain't no way they can do nothing with that. She said, well, we're not leaving without it. And she went in, and she couldn't get it out, and I felt sorry for her. She came back, and so I went and helped her get the hand out. It was still in the glove, and she wrapped it in a towel. It sat on the floorboard between my feet. And to Pawhuska, down the 4-acre road, that's 20 miles of dirt road, and it's for sure a 45-minute drive, driving fast, but we made it in 20 minutes to the hospital. The trip scared me way worse. I thought we was going to wreck and both die. But we had a brand new truck at that time, and I was worried I was going to get blood in it on the floor.
I remember that day quite well because I was good friends with Laird Helmer, Sherry's dad. Did he meet y'all or come to town or something? It seemed like he took off.
Yeah, that was back when the stoplight worked.
Yeah.
Of course, we hit it red, and I told her, I said, you better stop, you're going to get hit.
Right.
She said, I ain't stopping.
Right.
But, yeah, I think that's where he met us, is right there.
Yeah, I remember him taking off to meet you guys, told us what happened.
I remember you telling me that you got in the truck to leave, and when you were sitting there, I can't imagine what you were going through, but said your arm kept raising up because he didn't have the weight of that hand on there, and he'd just be sitting there, and that because whatever you call it, your body's not used to that weight not being there, and his arm just kept raising up.
Yeah, I asked my doctor about that, and he said, oh yeah, he said your brain had been used to that weight your whole life, and then all of a sudden it's gone. And
how do you keep from bleeding to death in a deal like that? You know
what? At first, I really bled bad, and they didn't have to add a lot of blood to me actually, but after I talked to Sherry, I calmed down, and I think that's what caused it. But the time I got to the house, it was just dripping,
So they took you to Pawhuska Hospital first?
Yes, sir.
And then transferred you to Tulsa, I guess. Helicopter or just ambulance or what?
Yeah, they sent a helicopter.
Yeah.
And got to ride in a helicopter. And they took me to St. Francis, and I think it was Dr. David Bell was his name. He's a real well-known hand surgeon. And he come in there and told me that he'd give it a 50-50 chance to take. And I said, well, I don't have nothing to lose. So 9.5 hours surgery, he had it back on.
Talented guy, but just 2 or 3 years later, I think he was someplace he wasn't supposed to be, and and he come home, Cody. His wife met him at the front door and shot him right in the head.
You remember that? It was like 2 years to the day, wasn't it?
One year.
1 year, because
Yeah.
I was working with you up there. At
Exactly
4 Acre.
1 year to the day, and it was on a Sunday, and January 23rd. And the reason I remember is because it's my mom's birthday, but I didn't put two and two together on what day it was. But that morning, Sherry asked me what I was going to do, and I said, well, I'm probably going to go over and shop, pedal around work. And she said, well, you ought to probably do something different. And I said, why? And she said, well, today was exactly a year ago. You know, you had your accident. And so anyway, I didn't pay no attention to that, but I went on over and was working, and Sherry come over a couple hours later and said, you're not going to believe what I seen on TV. And it was about Dr. Bell, wife shooting him.
Talented guy, golly. Let that be a lesson
He
to all
mean.
you young men out there. Don't cheat on your wife. They
He
will
was
shoot
real,
you in the head.
real mean. He wasn't a real friendly guy.
Really?
Yeah, he had an attitude. But he didn't believe in therapy, physical therapy, and I didn't have no therapy at all in my hand. I wore a lot of different braces, like when I'd sleep, but the only therapy I had was really just working on the buckles. Started.
How long did you have to stay in the hospital after that?
I think I was in there 4 or 5 days. Wasn't very long.
And it was just a year that Dr. Bell died? A
Yeah,
year
I was
after
still under
surgery?
his care.
Okay.
And I had to start going somewhere different.
Because when I went to work for you up there, you was able to hold the horseshoe nail by then to shoe a horse
seen that song.
in a year's time after getting your hand cut off. That's something else.
Yeah, I was lucky. People say I'm unlucky, but it's way better than a hook, you know. Or
Good thing your wife's hard-headed and wasn't going to leave without that hand, didn't it?
Oh yes, sir, man. I don't know what I'd do without Sherry.
And this is all at the main shop there at the 4 Acre headquarters of what's now Sooner Land and Cattle. And you've had a lot of bad luck in that shop. Not just that.
Yeah. Oh yeah, that and you know my hand accident. I thought I knew what pain was because I broke a lot of bones, but man, that was rough. But I'll tell you something that hurt way worse than cutting my hand off was when I got bit by a rattlesnake.
You got bit. I knew Sherry got bit. You got bit too?
In that shop.
Same
Well,
shop.
good for you.
I'd burn that booger down.
Well, it was right before I retired, and so I think they was just trying to give me one more dose before I headed out.
On the way out the door.
Yeah, I was in that same shop. I went. I was needing to pump some water out of a ditch, and I was going to use a 2-inch water pump, and I hadn't started it in quite a while. And anyway, it was back in that little room where the phone is, that little
Yes, sir.
office area. It's kind of dark in there, but I went to check the oil, and I stuck my hand down between the pump and the motor and to unscrew the oil plug, and I felt something hit me on the knuckle right there, and stung, and I thought it was maybe a thorn or something. And so I pulled my hand back and looked down there, and it was a little old. He wasn't about the size of a pencil, not very big. There's a little rattlesnake coiled up right there, and that's what got me. I looked at I had two marks there. And I thought, son of a gun, that's on my good hand. You know, and my wife, when she got bit, they had to take her finger off and the bone and everything back to her wrist, and hers was way worse than mine. But I thought, well, here we go. We're going to have two crippled hands.
She was the same thing. She was reaching back in the flower bed or something, wasn't she? When
Yes,
she got
sir.
bit,
She
the way I
had some
remember.
rocks stacked up, and it stormed real hard the night before, and she was on her knees, bent over, straightening some little bitty flowers up. It wasn't like it was big, tall flowers, but in them rocks she had stacked up was a prairie rattler. And when she stuck her hand down there to straighten that flower up, that That snake come out and bit her on the hand and went back into the rocks, and she never even saw it. She felt it.
Yeah.
She thought a bee stung her.
Yeah.
And she took a broom handle and moved the rocks, and then he started rattling. That's how they do. They won't rattle until after they bite you.
Sorry, little boogers.
They're mean.
Cody likes to run out of snakes, don't you?
Yeah, those little prairie rattlers are for sure.
They're
bad
most
little
snakes,
dudes.
most rattlers would scurry and get out of your way, but them little prairie rattlers will lay there until you get close enough. There's been several people bit there at that headquarters.
Really?
Terry Smith was one of them, Bob Smith's son,
Oh, yeah. I'll be darned.
when he was a kid.
Shoot,
And one of the Adams boys, I believe, got bit. He was barefooted kicking at it, and it zapped him.
I'll be darned. But I remember seeing them up there. Well, I've seen them a lot of places. You might just trot over them, but to get off and kill one with your rope or something, and those little prairie rattlers, they'd raise up that high off the ground and come to you when you get them stirred up. But I was pretty lucky up there. All I got hurt was my feelings, I think.
You know, there's a trash barrel up there that says Stormin' Mormons on it, and guess who wrote that on it? It's still there. The last time I walked through that saddle house, it was still there.
I'll be darned.
Were you raised on a ranch, James, or country?
No, I didn't. When I was a young kid, we lived on a farm there around Oshaleta, and we had a bunch of pigs and a few milk cows. But what inspired me to want to be a cowboy was people like Butch Richardson, and he helped raise me, and the Adcock family. Berkey Adcock and I was real close friends, and I was able to go and spend time with them when I was young, and that them are some of the people I look up to.
There was a bunch of them. Your mom put a picture on Facebook a day or two ago of all the.
Oh, there's 12 of them.
Golly.
Yeah, you about need a spray for them down there in the morning. Yeah, I have like 36, 37 first cousins on one side, but you finished high school with Bob and Glenda there, didn't you?
I wonder what they were doing. That Adcock family was doing for fun.
Right.
Yeah, Bob and Glenda, they took me in. Berkey and I, like I said, was close friends. I told him last night that I was still mentally scarred over that, but because he was ornery, he got me in a lot of trouble.
Was?
Yeah, still is. But no, they let me live with them for a while when I was in high school, and the people asked where I went to school, and it was a lot of places. I moved out when I was young, and I went to 4 different schools the second half of my senior year, and I graduated from a little town called Olive. It's over by Drumright.
I'll be darned.
I went to school Caney Valley, Ramona and Oshaleta and Dewey and Copan, Uligal, all over the place.
Oh, you bet.
Probably spent most of my years would have been there at Caney Valley, Ramona.
When did you start working for the Adams? Or was it Adams still in? Or?
Yes, sir, it was. I graduated in '83 and worked in the construction for a little while, and then I went to work up at 4 Acre.
Yeah.
That was my first cowboying job. I cowboyed when I lived over with the Adcocks. But I worked for Dan Payne. He was the foreman then. And that was in '84 when I went there. And then I was there for a year or two, and then I left and went over to the Hughes Ranch, worked for John and Robert Hughes over at Bartersville. And then came back to 4 Acre and worked for Burr Gagan, Phil Davis at that time. And that was still Adams then. And then the Mormon Church bought it in '89.
Okay.
And I went to work for them then, and I think I was with them 27 years before I retired.
And Bob Smith was there at Adams when you started, wasn't he?
Yes, sir. Yeah, Bogue Foreman,
Yeah.
Wally Johnson, Les Rexroth.
Les asked about you the other day. I talked to him 2 or 3 weeks ago. Asked about Muley.
Yeah, yeah, he still calls me that.
But weren't you at Bird Creek at one point?
Yes, sir. Yeah, well, when Adams owned it, Skeet Raspberry asked me if I wanted to go to Bird Creek and take care of that place, and so I was there, and then Sherry and I got married, and they moved me back to 4 Acre.
Now, was that part of the Moldor? Was that the old Moldor out there at Bird Creek you're talking about?
Y'all just here right there at Blue Stem Lake.
Yeah, but that was Moldor at one time.
Yeah,
Yeah,
before
right.
it was Oklahoma Land and Cattle.
Yeah, right.
Yes, sir.
Right.
Yeah, it was Oklahoma Land Cattle when I was there, and then when anyway, I was there when Adams owned it, and then I ended up going back. Sherry and I moved in there again after the Mormons took over, and then the Mormons moved me back to 4 Acre. So I've been back and forth quite a bit, but they asked me if I wanted to go up there, and that's when I stayed.
What made you get interested in the belt buckles?
Well, when I was a kid, all the Adcock kids had them. Frank Adcock made them, and man, I wanted one so bad, but I never did get one. I remember he charged $35 for them, but I guess it was been right after Sherry and I got married. Was at the Hughes Ranch, and my brother gave me a buffalo horn, and I made a buckle out of that, and it took like 2 weeks, seemed like. I still have it. I gave it to my brother. He wore it for years, and then he gave it back to me. But that was my first one, and then after that, I started making a few, and I went up, and Frank helped me some, and he gave me some real good tips. But Frank's the one where I got it from.
How's a guy go about making anything out of a cow horn?
I tell people that it all comes from a dumb cowboy, hungry.
Yeah.
If you're
about
hungry.
about like rawhide braid.
Exactly.
Yeah, if you're hungry
Same
enough,
There's an old
you-
dad cow there. Let's
Same deal.
skin it and cut it into string and braid it into something.
I tried my hands at making spurs. After I got injured, I couldn't work for a while, and so I was lucky enough I got to go spend some time with John Israel, and I really enjoyed that. He showed me how to make spurs and helped me make a set of spurs. And anyway, I went home thinking that I'd want to do that, but boy, it didn't take much. It's too much work and hard work, I thought, but. You make one spur, and then you got to make another one to match it. It's what I didn't like. But I decided, I was going to go back to making buckles, and so that's what I did. I made a lot of buckles with just one hand, just using vices and vice grips.
Get it down to where you need it. You just keep sanding it down, or what?
Yeah, well, the first one I made, I just had a couple files and a hacksaw, I think. And then I ended up getting a belt sander, and I just turned it upside down and put it in a vise, and I used that for a long time.
What about when you're putting people's names and brands and stuff on them? How do you do it? Is that branded in there, or do you
Yes, sir.
engrave it in there?
It's just
how the heck's it
wire.
done?
Wire shaped.
Okay.
Just take it's a little bit smaller than baling wire, and I just shape it and heat it up and burn it in.
I just kind of melts right in that horn.
I just can't believe how sharp they look, Jimbo.
Oh,
I mean, they.
Thank you.
Really neat.
Thank you.
I just can't believe they can just take an old horn, make a beautiful buckle out of it.
Where do you get your horns? Or how do you get them?
Most of my horns I get out of Nigeria, Africa, Brazil.
Watusi's in.
Yes, sir. Watusi steer horns.
Right.
Bull horns don't work very well. They're real thin, but the steer horns are.
I
a lot
thought the
thicker.
bull horns would be thicker.
No, sir. They're just paper shell thin.
I'll be darned.
Yeah.
Did
Of
you
course,
have-
out there on the tip, they get solid. But
Right.
and then they'd be way too expensive.
Now, why do you like the Watusi? Just because it's easy to source that material, or do you like it anyway?
Well, Frank always made them out of Hereford horns, didn't he?
Yeah. You about had to flatten them all out because they'd had
Because they're
such
such
a
a small
sharp
circle.
curve.
Yeah.
They could steam them
Right.
and clamp them and shape that stuff.
Yeah, the Watusi, I tried Longhorns, and I wish I could use them because they're beautiful. There's a lot of color in them, but they're real laminated, and they want to come apart, and split real bad, where the Watusi don't. So, but yeah, they're steamed. I'll steam them horns and flatten them out.
How do you do that? Without giving away all your trade secrets.
No, I don't have no secrets. It's just a kitchen pot that steam runs the hose and into that pot. It ain't nothing real fancy.
Sounds like an old moonshine still.
Right, right.
You can do it kind of like a hot dog bun too, can't you? I mean, just on a top of some boiling water and hot. And,
Well, I'll tell you, one time I got in the hot water with Sherry. I was living in the middle house up there at the ranch, and my dad called, and we got to talking. Well, I'd forgot. I'd steamed all my keepers inside the house in the kitchen on the kitchen stove, and I had probably 15 or 20 of them in there and a couple of buckles, and so there's a lot of horn product in there. And anyway, I got talking on the phone, and I remember we had a cordless phone, which was nice, and I was sitting out on the porch, and pretty soon I started smelling something, and I looked up, and smoke was just rolling out the door. That house stunk for burnt horn.
Burnt horn, yeah, that's got its own smell, doesn't it?
Oh, she was mad.
Have you ever
It was so bad you could taste it.
Yeah.
in the house?
Women are
Oh,
funny.
yeah, it was horrible.
Women are funny like that.
oh, yeah.
That's about like that time I
Narrow-minded.
brought home that live skunk, Jimbo.
Yeah, yeah.
Live meaning the sack and everything is still in
I'm
it.
surprised you're still married after that.
I know.
That's kind of like soaking rawhide in the bathtub. I usually don't smile at that much.
How do you get them to hold your shape after you steam them?
You got to let them set for 24 hours for sure.
I mean,
maybe
you don't have to
longer.
put them in something to hold that for them. They'll just do it on their own once you shape them.
No, I built some hydraulic presses that I press them in, and,
Oh, okay.
and they'll be in them presses for about 48 hours.
I see.
And if they got enough thickness to them, they'll hold their shape.
Right.
But those keepers, you got the buckle,
Yeah.
like a 3-piece, 4-piece buckle set. And those keepers, don't you cut those out, steam them, and shape them around a stick and clamp them down?
It sounds like how do you connect them back to each other? Do you rivet it or do you sew them or what?
There's a real strong glue that I use that soaks into that horn, and it's actually stronger where you glue it than the horn itself. But
No kidding.
yes, sir. After they're cooled off, they'll pretty much hold their shape, so it don't take much to hold them.
I'm just so amazed by them.
Oh, I know.
We got a set of dice back there he made too, Jimbo.
I've got a letter opener that you made that
Oh, yeah.
I bought off Sherry when she's working there at the supply store
Yeah.
long time ago.
What about any horn furniture? You ever made any of it, like the old throne
No.
Geronimo or sitting bull they used to carry around for him to sit on?
No.
If you ever make one, be sure and keep me in mind because I've been thinking about down here on the end of the podcast table, a big horn throne.
Right.
What do you
Like they
think?
got over at Little Rock.
Do they have one over there?
Well, they've got those chairs made out of
Oh,
horn.
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
in that lodge.
That'd
Yeah.
be nice.
Oh, yeah.
That'd be nice if you're ever making any horn thrones.
I've made some lamps, but I don't enjoy it. If you get to making too many things, you just can't keep up. I'm
just
doing
giving you a hard
good to
time
keep up with
about the
buckles.
furniture.
Sherry's all the time coming up with different ideas for me, and I'm like,
I watched a YouTube video the other night of him making a comb. Mm-hmm. A comb out of a horn.
yeah.
Cutting it out, shaping it, sanding it down. It was a pretty son of a gun when they got done. But yeah, it's kind of like my rawhide deal. You can get off on some rabbit trails that you want to get back home pretty quick. And
Yeah,
do
I
what
watched
you
your
do.
podcast last night. I didn't know you made dog leashes.
Dog collars.
Dog collars?
Yeah, you bet. I didn't either. It was for some pretty special people.
Yeah.
I'll assure you.
Can you imagine being a dog with a rawhide collar around your neck you can't get to chew on?
Oh,
No.
my gosh.
Yeah,
That's driving that
crazy.
dog nuts for the rest of his life.
Yeah, they said he was stepping pretty high.
I bet. Jay Adcock braided collar. TCAA member.
Yeah, I remember when Jay lived with his granddad when he first started braiding.
Yes, sir. Sure did.
He was a good man.
Oh, yeah.
He called me Reiki.
James Reiki. Yeah.
That's all Bob would let me do in the hayfield because if I got on the swather, I usually tore it up, so they would keep me on the rake.
They never let me in the hayfield, Jimbo, unless it was the
Just to
hall,
haul it, yeah.
hall square, little square
I hated
bells.
that hayfield. Oh my gosh, I hated it.
I tore so much stuff up. There's no way they would let me on any kind of equipment.
That was kind of back during your illustrious rodeo career too, wasn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah. Back when I had brain damage.
Bareback rider.
Oh yeah.
I'll tell you who was good was Berkey. He could ride one like a cuckleberry stuck in a horse's tail. But
I mean, I like watching a good bareback rider, but it's one event that I've never really fully understood how they used it
just
on the ranch.
They just manufactured it.
It's a Wild West event,
Yeah.
no doubt about it.
yeah, it don't make no sense.
Maybe
Suitcase
Indians used
handles
to braid
basically
horses
all
that
you
way.
got.
But it just never looked fun.
It's not.
The
Bad on
best
your
ride
body,
in the
too.
world. Man, that looked like a beating.
They always look like they were in pain all the time when they wasn't riding bareback horses to me.
Yeah, they have to wear them collars on their neck and stuff.
Jay, you remember the Lights Rodeo?
That's what I was getting ready to bring up. I was going to ask Jimbo if you remember the Lipe Ranch rodeo?
I never did go to one, but I know
It's something
exactly.
else.
Yeah,
You know, the local hospitals made a lot of money off that.
yeah, I bet.
Right.
And I guess the only time I've seen horses buck as hard as some of them horses buck was when I went to Pendleton and watched them horses. But they was just gathered once a year.
That's what I was going to say. That Lipe Ranch owned those horses, and that's the only time they came
They
in.
turned them out on grass, and they gathered them once a year for that event. And none of the real good hands would go there because
Big old roping calves too. I remember that. I see pictures
Oh,
of them.
yeah.
You know.
yeah, and the wild cow milking, there was always an ambulance coming in
Boy,
and
they'd
out.
have some big tiger stripe cows in that cow milking, and it was just a two-man deal. You rope and one man mugs, and the guy roping milks. And yeah, it's a tough deal.
Wild
And that
horse
wild
race,
horse
it
race,
was
same
crazy.
horses.
Yeah.
Man, they'd weigh about 1,300 pounds. And I got in it with Berkey one time, and I can't remember. We had neither one of us very damn big, and we had somebody else about our size anchoring. And we drew a horse. I can't remember what color he was. I remember him being big. And I was probably 15. I didn't have any business being in it anyway, but they turned that horse out, and we never got his head bent. He never even looked back. And I was pretty relieved.
You didn't get him saddled?
Never did. We didn't get him shut down at
He didn't
all.
even know you had a hold of him, did he?
No. We were like three flies irritating him a little bit.
Berkey, when I was living there with him, he said, "Hey, the Lights Rodeo's coming up." He said, "Let's get in that." And I said, "Oh." He said, "Oh, come on, it'll be fun." Yeah, maybe to him, he went it about every year, wouldn't he?
Yeah.
That son of a gun.
He'd won the bareback riding before, hadn't he?
Oh, yeah.
That deal.
Yeah, he always got along just fine there. But I got in it that one year, and that was enough. I got a picture of it.
Well, I saw a picture of it on Facebook.
Well, I don't
Wasn't that a
know.
couple
She
years
must have
ago?
had her finger on the trigger and was ready to snap as soon as the gate opened. Because I don't know if yard darted is in the dictionary, but my name would be right by it.
No, I tell you, the worst yard dart I seen of yours was in the wild horse race down at Guthrie. When you
Yeah, that
said-
was because of Tackleberry buckle.
Yep. Man,
One of
that'll
Berkeley's.
happen with those things.
You remember when Frank had that ranch rodeo up at Sedan?
Right.
It wasn't long after Sherry and I got married. I guess I thought I was still a bronc rider then, but Carl Kelly showed up with a bunch of horses, and all of them really buck. And anyway, he told all of us that he'd pay us $10 a head to get on them. I was like, well, shit, that's more than I usually make.
Yeah.
So Berkey loaned me one of his bronc saddles, and I remember when I woke up, I was laying on my back and the saddle was up. I was still sitting in the saddle.
So is that really a buck off?
Oh my gosh! I landed on the back of my head or back of my neck, but it ripped the rigging plumb out of that saddle.
Is that right? Oh boy!
On the offside, and I remember Berkey. He got on a bronc right after that, and he just ran it up through the swells. Latigo,
right,
rode him like a champ.
Well, I had a bad wreck with the tackleberry one time. You know what we're talking about, that little quick change. It hooks in your cinch.
You don't have to lace it through.
You don't have to lace it through. You can have your latigos hanging down there and just hook it in that cinch and yank it up, and you're good to go. Unless that little tongue comes out, and then it's all over with. But they had I can't remember what year it was. It was at the OCA Ranch Rodeo at Guthrie. And I'd moved. It had been 99 or 2000, but they came up with this crazy idea to have this bedroll race where everybody puts their unsaddles your horse in the arena. You take your boots off, maybe even your leggings, and then you have to go stand over there. Well, they blow the whistle, and everybody goes at once, and you have to run, put your boots on, your leggings, saddle, and you got somebody holding your horse for you, so hopefully it's one you can run at them with the saddles. And anyway, and I'd put a tackleberry on that cinch just to be in a hurry where I could just saddle him and hook it and jerk it up. And then you had to run to the other end of the arena, to the west end of the arena, and they had a bunch of calves down there, and the first one to rope a calf wins after doing all this. So anyway, I hurried down there, and I got everything's good, and Tim Drummond was right ahead of me. And I was getting ready to start swinging, and Tim roped a calf, and it's all over with. So, all right, well, I'm just coiling up my rope. The party's over, and I was just walking. I was slow as you can walk back towards the cantina end of the arena, and I just go, splat! Piled me up, my saddle on top of me, and that horse was just barely walking. And it drew a lot of laughs.
It just fell off like a spud.
Yeah. The only thing been better if I'd have caught a calf, in a hurry. Yeah, that's when I quit them.
Yeah.
Quit the tackleberry anyway.
I know the guy that they invented the word yard dart for, that Donnie Gay first started using it. I actually lived with him down there by Fort Worth for a little while. We both worked for a guy building McDonald's playgrounds. His name was Robbie Vaccaro. He used to ride every week at Mesquite Championship Rodeo. I'm not sure how many of them he rode, but that's where Donnie Gay first came up with the term yard dart. Robbie Vaccaro. So,
yeah.
Used to watch that rodeo every Sunday night.
You remember Robbie Vaccaro then? He was the biggest star on the Mesquite Rodeo. He wanted... This is right when sponsorship started coming around. He wanted to get sponsorship by Dodge, so he just had some chaps made with Dodge's name on them. And they said, well, why the hell do we want to pay you if you're just doing it for free, Robbie?
No kidding.
James, have any idea how many buckles you've made?
I don't know. Well, I started numbering them. There's a couple guys told me that I really ought to put my initials and the year and number each buckle, and so I'm glad I did. I'm glad they told me that, but I started numbering them, I think, around 91, 92. Prior to that, I don't know how many I made. It was probably several hundred or more, but since I started numbering them, I'm a little over 4,000 right now.
Wow.
Almost 4,100, I think. So it's kind of neat to look at old buckles, see when they was made.
Right. How do you sell them? Do you go to a lot of trade shows?
No, we go to a few. We go to the Ben Johnson, and we go to Guthrie at the Ranch Rodeo, and then Amarillo.
Amarillo.
WRCA. That's our main show we go to. it keeps me busy most of the year. Just that one show.
Well,
Did you ever dream you'd be the world's largest horn buckle company?
No. It's been good to me. I enjoy it still to this day.
Oh, you bet.
It's a whole lot easier than cowboying, I'll tell you.
do you ever think about making, or have you ever made any trophy buckles for like rodeos or something?
I have, yeah.
That'd be unique because you see those other buckles all the time. You know.
Well,
Yeah, we partnered on that one. That was a WRCA.
yeah, we donated.
Yeah.
For the auction. I'm making a buckle right now, actually a headstall buckle. I make one every year for the Cinch Timed Event championship there in Guthrie that's coming up end of this month, I think. But Charlotta Raspberry and her husband, they donate it every year for that to the champion.
That's cool.
But I'm kind of limited what I can put on them, you know, because I just use wire and
How many different style buckles do you make?
2. I make one that fits a 1-inch belt that tapers in the front, and then I make one that fits an 1.5-inch belt, which is a standard size.
Now, do you make the little Ranger buckles?
Yes,
Yeah,
sir.
yeah.
Yeah, well, I used to make all the just 3/4-inch buckles, but I make 1-inch now. My
Right.
headstall buckles are 3/4.
Right.
Jay, I was lucky enough, he taught me how to braid. 80% of my buckles, I put a braid on them. Use kangaroo hide.
That really
the
sets
edge.
them off. Looks good.
Yeah, that does look good.
Jay really helped me a lot with that. You know, had not I learned what I did from him, I probably wouldn't be braiding them.
Right.
You remember another boy, was it Brian?
Tharp?
Yeah, Thorpe.
Yeah, him and I come over when you lived over
Yeah.
in Oshaleta.
Yep, that's right.
He used to make them with me. Good man.
They part of the Tharps from Mark City.
He's married to
Brian, Rush Tharp.
Yeah.
Brian Tharp. Yeah,
Yep.
Brian worked with me up at the ranch for several years.
I know some of their family. You know any of the Stocktons over there from Mark City? Roger, J.C. Stockton.
Now, I've heard of him.
Yeah, they're pretty wild. They bit off Roger one time. I was talking to someone about Roger just the other day from Cedarville. I said, yeah, I knew a guy that used to live in Cedarville. He bit off the sheriff's ear one time. He said, oh, that's Roger Stockton. He hit in the creek after he did it.
bit off the sheriff's ear.
He bit the sheriff's ear off during the horse sale there, and then it was in the middle of December, horse sale in Cedarville, and I guess there's a creek right behind it. He went and hid in the creek in the middle of December, and he stayed on the run for a year or two, and they finally caught up with him in Florida, he said, and he said when they came to get him, they wasn't nice at all. They handcuffed his hands all the way down. He had to sit like this all the way back from Florida to Cedarville. So
It's a long ride.
he said that was a long ride. He had a little bit of crick in his back by the time he got there. So
They had some good horse sales there back in them days.
yeah, yep. Wild ones too, I hear.
Yeah, you're just, how far south of Cedarville are you?
I'm
5 or 6 miles.
5 miles.
Yeah, they bought a nice place just on the north end of the Mormons' 4-acre ranch.
Right,
Just
I'm a mile and a half
couple miles.
north of the Kansas Trap. A lot of people know where the Kansas Trap is because of poaching deer, drinking beer. But Jimbo asked me earlier, I call it Poverty Canyon. I live right in the middle of Poverty Canyon, but
They're going to have to rename it, or you keep making all them buckles.
no,
That Kansas Trap, was I the last one to live there?
no. You was pretty close, but there was
Okay.
a few other people lived there that we rented it to. Outlaws mostly.
Yeah. Man, I love that place.
Yeah.
I was keeping those horses up there and just
Yeah,
kinda
you had a
working out of there.
good setup.
Didn't have to see anybody.
Elm Grove's where I liked.
Oh, yeah.
You didn't have no neighbors at Elm Grove.
That's right. You know, it's a shame that they let those camps go, you know, in a way. That Elm Grove and the Nail, and then what was the one where Bob Smith lived? Wasn't he the last one to live there on the south end?
Yeah, the house that burnt down.
Yeah. But that Elm Grove, that was, were you there for the big shootout?
No, I'd moved out and went to work. Les Rexroth and I lived there together, and then I moved out and went to Hughes Ranch, or no, they moved me to Bird Creek, and I think that's when they hired Clint Mullendore. Yeah, they was the last ones that lived there, and they got in a gunfight and shot the house all to hell. I think it was because Clint didn't like Les's hat, and he shot a hole through it.
Yeah, I remember Les telling me it was started with his alarm clock or something.
No, his alarm clock.
Or what was
Nothing makes a man madder than an alarm clock.
It was right after, there's 3 bedrooms, and I was in the middle bedroom. That's where they put the single cowboys in. And anyway, I was in between Wally Johnson and Les Rexroth, and Les had just moved in. He come from Washington. It was Washington, wasn't it?
Yes, sir.
And Wally and I didn't really care much for him then. You know, we didn't trust him. But one evening I went to bed and I just dozed off, and all of a sudden the gun started going off. I mean, just boom, boom, boom. Is that the story you're talking about?
Yeah, well, and then I was talking too about when Les and Clint.
Yeah.
I remember Clint did shoot Les's hat off the wall or something.
Yeah.
And it was on. I think they were just shooting through the walls at each other.
But I jumped out of bed and ran in there, and I opened the door, and Les is sitting on the edge of his bed, and he has a pistol in his hand, and there's thousands of pieces of something all over the floor. And I said, "What in the world are you doing?" And he said, "Well, I'm trying to set that damn alarm clock to 5 a.m. and it keeps going to 6, and it pissed me off." And so he said I couldn't handle it no more. And so we really didn't like him after that. But he became a really close friend.
Oh, you bet. Yeah, me too.
He's a good man.
Yeah. Les left, he left Chapman Barnard's and went to California. And then a month or 2 later, I ended up at the same feedlot in California. Me and Les shared an apartment right in downtown Coalinga, California.
Wow.
We fit right in. We had this beautiful apartment, and our furnishings, we had a coffee pot and 2 bedrolls. We didn't have any chairs or anything, but it was a good time, good memories.
We were talking earlier, James. You said you had an old. I don't know how we got on Chubb Anderson, but you said you had an old gun of Chubb's.
Yeah, I got 2.
2 old
Yes,
guns.
sir.
Tell the story about that one that got lost for so long.
Well, I'm pretty sure him and my brother Wes was on mules. I think Wes was with him. I might be mistaken, but anyway, they was up there on the north end of the ranch, right on the state line, poaching deer. There's deer hunting. There's hunting off mules.
Chubb poaching something?
I think he invented that word. But anyway, he went to jump his mule over a fence. He tied the 2 top wires down, and I can't remember if it was a cubby, a quail, or a turkey or something spooked that mule, and that mule pulled away from him, got away, and ran off. And I think it was like 2 days later they finally found him. And the saddle was up underneath his belly, and he had a gun scabbard, and the gun was gone. And so anyway, he looked for a while, tried to find it. It was a 22 pump Winchester, had a Leopold scope on it. And anyway, on his guns, most of them, he had put a brass dog tag on them with his name and address and phone number. And I think it was probably 25, 30 years maybe after that, the people that owned the ranch then, Roy and Dory Tucker, you know.
Oh, yeah.
Well, I think they was shed hunting one day, horseback, and Dory found it. And it was leaned up against a tree. And
Wonder how it got leaned up against the tree.
well, I think that's how when it came out. You know, when it come out of the scabbard, you know.
Yeah,
It was
yeah, well, it could have, yeah.
And of course, it's all rusted solid.
Sure.
And the stalks burnt a little bit from the fires
Yes,
coming
fire,
through. But the scope's still good on it. You can still look through the.
I'll be
It'd be a
darned.
good story for Leopold.
Yeah, that'd be good advertisement.
Was that in the Lost Canyon?
It was right north of the Lost Canyon on what used to be the old drumming place.
Yeah.
And Roy and Dory
Right.
bought it. But just right across the state line, in fact, the fence they was jumping was the state line, right there on the north end of the Lost Canyon. But
Yes, sir.
Anyway, Dory found that gun, and she had it for several years. And when they sold the ranch to move to New Mexico, I helped them load a lot of their stuff to move. But they always tried to pay me, and I wouldn't let them. And she said, surely there's something we can do. And I said, there is one thing I'd like to have, and it'd be that gun. It used to be Chubb's. And she said, why would you want that? It don't even work no more. It's a treasure to me.
Right.
So anyway,
Yeah,
she
it
gave
is.
it to me, and I still have it.
What'd you think about old Chubb?
I thought
Everyone
he-
we talked to has a whole, solely different opinion on him. Every single person, don't they, Jim?
I thought he was the kindest, most polite gentleman. Wes and I, we'd go over when we was kids. I remember when he lived out east of Dewey, and I always felt like he was up to something because there's guns everywhere, but I didn't know what.
And he's a convicted felon, not even supposed to have a gun.
No, he wasn't. But when he turned himself in, I'd go over and see him at Caney and visit with him. I took another gun that used to be his and had him sign it for me. I still got it. So, but had him sign my Mollendor book. I started asking him questions one day, and he kind of smiled and he said, "You're wanting me to tell you who killed OEC, aren't you?" I said, "No." I said, if you wanted to share that, I'd sure listen, but no, I don't want to chisel it out of you. And he said, "Well, I'll tell you this much, James." He said, "I know for a fact that the person that killed E.C. Mollendor's name is in the book." I don't know if you read that book, but there's like 5,000 names
Right.
in the book. And he just laughed and said, "Well, I need to go take a nap," and walked out. But he's a neat guy. I thought he was a great guy.
Was you there when he was married to the old young girl before he died?
Yeah, Judy.
I don't know. I just read in another book about
Oh, after he had turned himself in?
it. Yeah.
No, I never met. Well, yeah, I went over several times, but I never met her. But my mom, she cleaned his room for him. She was real good friends with Margaret Bird, which Margaret took care of him a lot.
Yeah, I know Margaret. We've done a lot of business together through the
Yeah,
years.
her
me
and my
Margaret.
mom was best friends. Connie.
Was he a good cowboy?
I don't know. Do you know, Jay?
I never did work with him. I don't.
I never did either.
He could load them steers and calves at night pretty good, I think.
I'd heard Frank talk about him using him day working and stuff.
I never
Not-
cowboyed around him.
Did he
Not
tell you
long.
about being on the run or anything? When he went
Yeah,
up to
he
Turner's?
did. He talked about that a little bit. He said he had a team of mules and he was out driving them mules one day, and he was out in the middle of nowhere, and there was a car showed up, and he knew they was lost, but so he drove his mules over, and they flagged him down and wanting to know where to go, and as they drove off, he looked at their tag, and they was from Washington County, Oklahoma. He said, "I sure hated that day because I had to pack everything up and move again."
Holy moly. Hey, just say someone's wanting to buy or order a buckle from you. How do they get a hold of you?
Facebook, a lot of people order through that.
Is it JC
You can
Cowhorn
just call
Buckles?
me. That's the easiest way. But Sherry, she had us a web page built here several months ago, and we're getting a lot of orders off that. JC'sCowhornBuckles.com. There's lots of pictures to look at and prices.
Easily the most unique buckle out there. I'd
They're
say.
great.
Thank you.
Yeah,
They are
I
great.
agree.
beautiful.
Well, Frank inspired me. He's kind of what got me started. I always wanted one all them years, and it was, I believe 2, maybe 3 years ago, Frank called and wanted to know if I was home, and I said, yeah, I'm working in a buckle shop. And he said, well, I'm in Cedarville. He said, I got something I want to bring out to you. And he made me a buckle. And I told him, I said, man, Frank, I said, if you'd done this 45 years ago, I probably wouldn't be making them today.
I'll be darned.
But I sure was happy to get it. I was proud of it. I cherish it.
I bet.
Because he's the one that started making them around here. Jay, you know that story?
No, I thought about trying to get a hold of Bob or Tom and see the name of the gentleman.
Bob and Tom Morehouse both come by my booth in Amarillo, and they said they knew that man. There's an old man in Texas that started making them.
I think it was a gentleman in the Texas Panhandle somewhere
Frank might know.
he might, but I know Barney Glasscock, who used to work around. Did you ever know Barney Glasscock?
Know the name.
Yeah, he was around Osage County. I think he was originally from Texas, but he worked for Hossels or somebody. But he gave Frank, the first one, a horn buckle. And that's when Frank went to making them. But I don't know the name of the gentleman that made the buckle that Barney Glasscock had. So I just don't know. I have to look it up.
So he gave Frank one of the buckles?
Yes. Yeah, and I'd seen that. No, I tell you what, I might accidentally have it because Frank gave it to Granddad, and Granddad gave it to me.
I'll be darned. That'd be neat.
And
I'd
forgot about that, but I've got it stashed away.
Yeah, I'd like to see that.
Yeah, I'll show it to you.
That'd be pretty neat.
What do you think about the gallery here
I
we're
love
sitting
it.
in?
Absolutely. You know, the talent people has is amazing. You know, Jay's stuff, I don't know how. Have you ever looked at his fingers? I don't, the fine braiding that he does, I don't know how he does it. It's just,
Don't either.
It's absolutely amazing.
You got to be very, very educated, James.
Yeah.
You know better than that.
I watched your podcast last night, which I really enjoyed, and you talked about Charlie Chambers. He was one of my heroes.
Oh, mine
I
too.
loved him. I got a whole wall full of his quirks, and he gave me every one of them. But I'd do something to help him, and I wouldn't let him pay me. But he always had a quirk when I'd run into him.
Oh, you bet. Not just that he braided quirts, but I thought he was the punchiest cowboy son of a gun I was ever around.
Very kind man.
You know, him and Dean Keplinger, when I was just a kid, 13 to 15, right in there, they would go out to Vermejo Park and help brand every year. And I thought, boy, I'd just love to go on one of those deals with old Charlie and Dean. But yeah, neat, good guy, super guy.
He one year it was in the heat of the summer. It had been 100 and some degrees, but he was hauling cattle from somewhere. But he was coming from up through the Kansas Trap, and that's a pretty good hill that you go up. And he had a trailer load of cows on, and run a tire, had a flat about halfway up that hill, and so I was coming down the hill and met him, and so I stopped and helped him, and it took quite a while to change that flat, but we got it done. It was really hot, and he tried to pay me, and I wouldn't let him, and well, it was about a week or two later, he come by the ranch, and he said, here, I got something I want to give you, and he gave me this quirk that he made. And he said, the other day when I had that flat, and I said, yeah. He said, well, I took that tire to Economy and had it fixed, and there was a piece of metal inside the tire about that long that's caused the flat. And so he took that piece of metal, and that was the handle in the quirk that he made me.
Oh, you bet.
I like telling that story.
Oh,
he would use
right.
anything for a handle.
Anything.
A dog leg.
Anything. It was, it didn't
Child
matter,
bone.
just, because he's just going to make something to use. Well,
But I cherish it. It's
Oh, heck yeah. Yeah, I've got some Charlie Chambers quirts myself, and it's just kind of funny, you know. I mean, he's the one that gave me the bug, you know,
Really?
helped me make my first quirt. Oh, you bet. But anyway, he was a character. But
Yeah.
I'd be tying you know, and then years later, 10, 15 years ago, I had a place there in Sedan, not far from Charlie, and he'd come by, every 3 or 4 weeks, and I'd give him all my scrap rawhide strings, and he'd tie little old scarf slides or whatever with them, and I don't know how many times I'd be tying a knot that was getting fairly intricate, maybe a heel knot on a hackamore or something, and well, when you're doing that with finer strings and tying a finer knot, it'll go to getting pretty snug on you, but you'll still have 2 or 3 more times to go around and get it completely finished, you know. And it never failed if Charlie saw me doing that. So he'd say, Jay, I don't know why you don't just quit right there. That thing's tight enough. Charlie, I better go ahead and get it all complete. And he said, well, it looks fine to me.
well, he made a bunch of them, didn't he?
Oh, he did.
You could spot one a mile away.
Yeah, thousands of them.
The first one he ever made me, I lost, and I was riding fence one day. It was in a Little Green 3 pasture. And I looked and looked and looked for it. And I think it was Les Rexroth that might have found it a couple months later. I quit carrying it after that.
I'll be darned. Yeah, I never refound one. There's probably been nothing lost more by cowboys, quirts and tie strings.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm telling how many of them are laying out there.
Yeah.
I've got my ass beat with a quirt and a tie string before.
Well,
me
need it.
too.
I guarantee you need it.
Well, Jimbo, what else you got for him today?
Oh, everybody order him a buckle.
Yeah.
A JC Calhoun buckle. I guarantee it'd be
Be a family heirloom.
Yeah.
be a
I'll
family
have it.
heirloom and the most unique, one-of-a-kind buckle that you'll have.
You know, I know one other guy, believe it or not, that lost his hand
Really?
and they reattached it. You remember Richard Gonzalez, steer roper?
Right, right.
Here a few years ago, he was roping a calf, got his hand in the coil, and it sawed his hand off. And they reattached it. It don't look near as good as yours. His wrist is about this big around now where they reattached it, but he's back to roping again.
Dr. Bale didn't do that one.
Back to roping again.
You know, you remember Bill Reed?
Oh, yeah.
He come to see me in the hospital, and he gave me an Indian head penny for good luck. But I remember he told me, he said, we may have to start calling you Tadpole because, you know, Tadpole, you can pull a leg off and they grow back. I'm sure glad that didn't stick.
Right. No kidding. Well, if you'd have told me that 20 years
Yeah, it
ago,
would have stuck,
would've
would it? Yeah.
Yeah, it would have. It sure would.
Well,
Been a good one, Cody.
it's been a good one. Everyone get a buckle. Headstall buckle for your pants. He makes dice. If you want to throw some dice, I got a set of dice back there he made.
Yeah, I'll have it ready the second Tuesday of next week.
You can come see him at the Ben Johnson. The Ben Johnson days.
Yeah, absolutely.
Come see him face to face right there. Get all your buckles ordered right there. Just come see him right there at the Ben Johnson.
It's
Ranch
nice and
Rodeo.
cool. They got the AC on.
Yeah. Hottest show of the year. He's by the door, though. He knows where to sit up.
Right.
Well, thank you very much for having me. I'm honored.
Well, thanks for coming on.
Our pleasure.
Yeah.
Well, everybody.
Thank you, Jay, for coming
Yeah,
too.
you bet.
Yeah, Jay.
You
Thanks
bet.
for helping us out.
Enjoyed the heck
Yeah,
out
you
of it.
too, Jay. Sorry about that.
Oh, shoot, I'm fine.
Hey, if you
Just
need
hanging
some
out.
good stuff right here, we're adding more and more to the gallery every day. Me and Jay worked all day the other day putting new stuff in here. So get over here, get some of this stuff looked at. There's nowhere else in the world you can just pop in a store and buy Bo Compton belt buckle, J. Adcock Rieta, and a Pedro Perini saddle all in the same day. So, and a pair of Wilson Capron spurs to put on too.
Oh,
I
absolutely.
mean, there's just I can't think of anywhere else besides the Cowboy Hall of Fame once a year you can go buy
Right.
any of this stuff from all these great makers. So
Right.
come check it out. It's looking better and better every day. And hey, we'll see y'all next week. Thanks for listening.
Thanks, sir.
Later.
Old stories like long lost friends, rodeos and late night bends, history before our time, round pens and pasture rides, cowboys of the Osage.